is such a weird time in tech. We have these insane, revolutionary advancements happening pretty much every week. But at the same time, we're in this really rough job market with layoffs happening all the time and people having a really hard time finding a new job. So there's this weird uncertainty happening in tech right now. Is this the best time ever to be working in tech? Or is it time to find a different career path? Hey everyone, Elisa here, and in this channel I talk about all things tech, product, career, and life. So if any of that's interesting to you, I highly recommend you subscribe. Now let's dive in. So at this point, I think we've all heard what the NVIDIA CEO said at a World Government Summit, but in case you didn't hear it, he said that for the last 10 to 15 years, every single person on a tech forum stage would have insisted that it is vital for young people to learn computer science. He then said, in fact, it's the exact opposite, which kind of blew everyone's minds. He later goes on to say, "It is our job to create computing technology such that nobody has to program, and that the new programming language is human." NVIDIA is such a respected company right now, and I think when he said those things, it made a huge impact on the tech world. People really started to question, well, wait, is computer programming a dying art? And then there have been products released pretty recently that claim to be able to replace different roles in technology. The most popular one is Cognition's Devin, which is being dubbed as the first AI engineer. Devin is an autonomous agent that solves engineering tasks through the use of its own shell, code editor, and web browser. But Devin isn't the only tool people have their eyes on. There's a lot of other ones as well. There's a tool called Galileo, which is a prompt to UI design tool, and sorry, product managers, but there's a couple in our arena too. There's one called Version Lens, which pitches itself as a co-pilot for product managers. And then just last week, I talked about a product called ChatPRD, which is a product that creates PRDs pretty instantaneously. So at this point, things might be feeling a little bit doomsday. So let's take a moment to breathe and reset. Okay, cool. So while there are a lot of good arguments about why people should consider shifting their focus away from computer science into different industries, there are also plenty of differing opinions out there. There's one great post by Flo Crivello that was very interesting to me, and I want to share it with you. And to preface, I'm a little bit nervous about talking about this post because it dives into economics, and I haven't thought too much about economics since high school, where I took AP Econ. So if you're an econ expert, just bear with me as I try to explain this post, okay? So the post first points out how technology completely uprooted the farming industry. The percentage of the American workforce that worked in agriculture went from 70% in 1840 all the way down to 2% now. But there's other goods out there that have a very different trend, where consumption increased as productivity increased and price decreased. I told you, econ. Bear with me. So people use more of something because it is cheaper to produce and therefore more accessible. This is called the Jevons paradox. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm not sure, but we're going with it. So the Jevons paradox happens when the price of something decreases, but the demand for it then increases by even more. So for a simple example, let's talk about travel. The two variables will be the cost of fuel and the demand for traveling. So if the cost of fuel decreases by 10%, but the resulting demand for travel increases by 20%, the Jevons paradox is occurring. More traveling will actually be happening and more will be spent on fuel despite the fact that fuel prices went down. So while we could use farming as a history that we want to base our predictions on, you could also base your predictions on something like coal, where the decrease in price and increase in accessibility actually led to way more demand for coal. History repeats itself. The question is, which history? So maybe with AI, the price associated with implementing these advanced technologies will go down, but there's a chance that that could actually increase the demand for technology and highly tech-savvy people. So what's my take? Well, I've always believed that creating great product is an art. It requires great technical, strategic, and creative skills. It also requires so much collaboration, and there's so much nuance there when you're creating a great product. I mean, just think of a typical stand-up or brainstorming session. PMs are constantly asked questions by engineers and designers and need to make a lot of nuanced decisions. Engineers and designers also have to think of creative solutions given the constraints they're currently dealing with. Teams have to weigh the costs and benefits of every single line of code and every architectural decision. There's so much nuance there, and just because a product has great code doesn't mean it's going to be successful. We can also look at other no-code tools like website builders. These are tools that help you create websites with no code, but people are still paying to have someone create a website for them. And big enterprises have too many requirements or too many complexities to use some of these no-code tools. We also just don't know at this point how well these technologies are going to work in big companies. We've seen demos, but I want case studies. I want to see it in action. I want to see an example of AI replacing an eng org. If that happens, well, then I'll probably have a different take on the future. I do think what will inevitably go down, whether you're in product, design, or engineering, is the amount of time you'll have to spend just heads down on a computer typing, kind of mindlessly, right? Like playing music, not really having to think super critically. I think those are the types of tasks that could get replaced by AI. And I'm most comfortable talking about the product management role. I think things like writing PRDs or writing JIRA tickets or logging bugs, like those are the things that are a little bit tedious, and I could totally see that being replaced by AI. But the strategic thinking and the collaboration that needs to happen for a product to be successful, that's really a lot more complicated to replace, in my opinion. I, of course, don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone does. There are some brilliant people speaking on this topic that have differing opinions, and that's okay. We're all trying to figure out what the right next step is here. I'd say if you are interested in technology, don't immediately drop studying it, but just make sure you're definitely learning AI. Lean into it, because it's definitely going to be the future. I mean, you even look at the technology that replaced so many people in farming. The people who learned how the technology works are the very same people who created even more advanced technologies in the future. So I don't think we're at a point where you should just stop leaning into tech, but I do think the landscape is changing. And that's part of the reason why so many people like tech, is because it's always changing. It's not this thing that's always constant and kind of boring. I'm sure if you're like me, you've been thinking a lot about the future of tech, because it's hard not to with all the headlines that we've seen. I think the best thing we can do is lean into AI, learn as much about it as we can, and then I think as we get more information, we can make more informed decisions on how we should adjust our careers. Was that doomsday? This wasn't meant to be doomsday. This was meant to say, like, look, we don't really know yet. And it's an exciting time in tech. It's cool to see all these revolutionary things that are happening. I think it's just important to lean into it and be okay with the change that comes. Anyway, I hope this was interesting for you. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to hear more, please subscribe. I am also on Instagram if you want to see more entertaining and informative content. And of course, you can book a one-on-one call with me as well. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you next time. Bye, friends. I really hope I didn't butcher that econ lesson. I didn't even look up how to pronounce Jevons. Jevon? Jevon? Jevon?